I want to begin by saying that when it comes to jazz improvisation, there is nothing new under the sun. It's all been done, at least within the realm of functional harmony. So what's left for musicians is to explore new and unique ways of incorporating the harmonic elements developed throughout the previous centuries. And to that effect, I recently posted a series of videos demonstrating how jazz musicians are using the different concepts employed by the Impressionist composers, namely Debussy and Ravel. However, in this lesson, I want to step back in time back to the 18th century in order to demonstrate how the melodic essence of many jazz lines date back to the music of whom many believe might be the most pivotal composer in Western music, Johann Sebastian Bach. I'm Richie Zellen, and in this lesson I am going to teach you several 2-5-1 lines straight out of Bach's music that you can incorporate when soloing over countless standards. This, by the way, is the reason why several great jazz teachers, such as the late Mick Goodrick, assigned Bach violin partitas to be played by some of his guitar students. In my case, I remember when I attended Berkeley, John Damian, one of my teachers, did exactly the same. So, to get started, let's listen to a couple of 8-measure fragments from Bach Inventions that became the foundation for at least 2 of the most popular standards in every jazz musician's repertoire. Over this first one, they are from Bach's Invention number 13. See if you recognize what standard is based on it. If you didn't recognize it, here it is again, and this time I am going to add the standards melody to it. Of course, it's Autumn Leaves. Let's listen to a different portion extracting the initial 6 measures again from Invention 13 and the final 2 measures from Bach's Invention number 2. Here it is adding the standards melody for those who didn't recognize it. I'm sure you recognized it. Another classic, All the Things You Are. And this should lead us to a simple deduction. That is, if the chord changes in melody in a Bach composition are the foundation for these standards, we should be able to analyze his lines throughout to employ them as vocabulary when improvising over standards based on the same harmony. Now, I realize that Bach wasn't necessarily thinking in terms of 2-5-1s, more likely in terms of 4-5-1 or simply dominant to tonic. Also, he obviously wasn't swinging the notes, but by simply altering the rhythm, we can extract some beautiful 2-5-1 lines from Bach's music to use as jazz vocabulary. That said, you'll notice that most of the original Bach lines we are going to examine are written in 16th notes. What you will need to do in several instances is expand them to be played as 8th notes in order to fill the measures occupied by most 2-5-1s within standards. You will also have to interpret them as swing 8th notes unless of course you are playing over a bossa nova, in which case they work beautifully as are. For our first example, let's take measures 7 and 8 from the Allemande off Bach's English Suite 3. And this is a minor 2-5-1 in G minor. The notes in this line can be analyzed as corresponding particularly to an A Locrian over the 2 and D Phrygian dominant over the 5 chord. What we can see here that has been adopted by jazz improvisers is the use of guide tones at the point of transition between chords. Notice the flat 7 transitioning to the 3 between the 2 and the 5, and the 5 to the flat 3 between the 5 and 1 chord. Next, let's look at measures 7 and 8 off of Gavotte 1, also from Bach's English Suite number 3. This is a major 2-5-1 line in B flat. The specific technique that I want to point out here is Bach's use of octave displacement at the point of transition from the F7 to the B flat. This, by the way, is something Charlie Parker did a lot. For example, let me slowly play how Charlie Parker used it on measure 20 of his solo on Blues for Alice. I want you to know that I've done an entire lesson on Charlie Parker's use of octave displacement. And for those interested, I will put a direct link to it in the info section down below. For now, let's look at another example of octave displacement, this time from measures 13 and 14 from Bach's Invention number 5. This is a minor 2-5-1 with the line corresponding to the notes of a Locrian, Mixolydian, and natural minor. Notice the octave displacement here after the initial D over the G7. Instead of going down an interval of a second to the C below, it leaps up an octave. And what this does is create a wider range in the overall line, not to mention some added interest. This is exactly what Charlie Parker and many jazz improvisers do for exactly the same effect. And we can see that once again Bach does this immediately upon transitioning to the C minor. However, notice that this time, instead of going up a half step after the final B over the G7, he instead leaps downward to the C an octave below. Next, I want to show you another one of my favorite Bach lines, but before I do, I want to tell you about the download for this lesson. I have played and analyzed pages and pages of Bach's music and extracted 17 2-5-1 lines that can be used over countless jazz standards. Of course, there are lots more, but here are 17 lines to get you started. The PDF includes regular notation in tab as well as a complete analysis. The Autumn Leaves and All the Things You Are Bach examples are also included. Featured as well is also an MP3 of me playing all the examples. Finally, there is a Band in a Box file with everything on it. And for those of you that don't have Band in a Box, a MIDI file is included. Note that both these files will allow you to easily transpose each example to any key, slow or speed them up, as well as loop them for more productive practice. And all of this is available for a nominal contribution from jazzguitar.richiezelland.com/premium. This next line is short but very characteristic of the Baroque sound. It's from measure 13 of Bach's Invention number 13 in A minor. This is a minor 2-5-1, and here we have Bach's use of octave displacement immediately after the first note. Featured as well are the use of guide tones at the point of transition between the 2 and 5 chord. Regardless of how old and unrelated to jazz it may seem to many, there is a wealth of information in Bach's music which holds the key to most of what we are doing several centuries later when improvising over the standards that comprise the great American songbook. So I hope you will take a closer look at the beautiful concepts we have inherited from Johann Sebastian Bach. As usual, I appreciate your likes and comments as well as welcome your questions. And if this is your first time on this channel and you enjoyed this lesson, please be sure to subscribe. Look forward to another info-filled lesson real soon. Until then, you know the drill. Practice, practice, practice. Rinse and repeat. And may peace be with you.